HSBC and RBS, so he has a good idea of how these conversations tend to work. Can we start with the resignation? Inevitable, do you think, given the resignation earlier in the week of Dame Alison?
I think it was absolutely inevitable on the basis that the decision was taken within Coutts, and he heads up Coutts, and he would have signed off on that decision. But maybe it's also worth mentioning that what they did was they weren't going to remove any possibility of Nigel Farage having a bank account, as the phrase debank suggests. What they were saying was, look, you have a wealthy person's bank account. You don't have enough money in the account to keep that. And therefore, we have to sadly downgrade you to a normal person's NatWest account, which Nigel Farage was not happy with.
OK, I want to put this on screen for people so they fully understand it. I want you to talk about where the Coutts committee got it right and where they got it wrong. So we know two things from the report that Nigel Farage got his hands on. The first, they discussed his bank account in a purely commercial sense. So this is the excerpt. It says, it was noted that Nigel Farage currently has a mortgage with Coutts, which is due to expire in July 23, and which on a commercial basis we would not look to renew, and so would suggest winding down the connection on that basis. Does that break the rules?
No, that is a commercial decision on the amount of money he either has in the bank or the amount of money that he owes the bank. That is commercial. OK,
but then they went on into what many people consider dangerous territory. And this is what has so appalled people, because this is what they said in that meeting. The committee did not think continuing to debank Nigel Farage was compatible with Coutts. Let me read that again. The committee did not think continuing to bank Nigel Farage was compatible with Coutts giving his publicly stated views that were at odds with our position as an inclusive organisation. This was not a political decision, but one centred around inclusivity and purpose. They were talking about Mr Farage's views around LGBTQ plus and inclusivity. Is that even relevant to holding a bank account?
The statement they made suggested that the inclusivity bit was why they made the decision, because it was contrary to the bank's values. That, in my view, doesn't count, because you taking a perspective on someone else's views of inclusivity is inherently political, albeit you're trying to do it to protect the bank from what you might perceive as a reputational risk.
Wealth managers are different to retail bankers. They're paid to better understand people. I think what mystifies me, given the cost to the bank reputationally and indeed financially, is how they didn't see which way this would go, given Mr Farage's reputation and, let's put it bluntly, his self-importance.
Christian, I think you're absolutely right, to be blunt. Given Mr Farage, given the fact that he is or has an account with Coutts, a private bank, given that that is a bank for wealthy people, and they were trying to push him out into having a bank account like normal people that didn't have all the bells and whistles, you would expect him to be unhappy, as indeed would anybody who had that sort of account was getting downgraded. But obviously with Nigel Farage, the likelihood was, in fact, the dead certainty was that he was not going to take it lying down.
We talked about this on this programme before, about the social positions that corporates take, and increasingly they're being asked to take such positions. But we all have political views, and when it comes to inclusivity, as an example, that is inherently political. Was it ever relevant to the bank's reputation?
Well, this is where it gets complicated, because obviously the banks are trying to do a balancing act in terms of they have their values and positions on these things, which they are expected to take as an organisation in society. And if they don't take positive values on those, they're going to get hit on social media. But equally, the question about reputational risk is interesting, because the judgment I would have assumed to be, OK, you have Nigel Farage as a customer. He does not agree with your values in terms of how you express them. He takes a different perspective. But that is not relevant in terms of reputational risk, merely that he has an account. If he was going out making speeches saying, I completely disagree with some of these things that are being put out about LGBT and Black Lives Matter. And actually, I have an account with Coutts. They are one of those organizations, and I just don't agree with it. That would be a completely different ballgame, because then you are making a direct link between the bank and his views questioning the bank.
Just very quickly before I let you go, we should separate the two reasons why the two chief executives have resigned.
Absolutely.
Dame Alison went because she briefed a BBC journalist on a private matter on his bank account. He's gone because, I guess, he's the fall guy for how the banking committee within his bank took this decision. Correct?
Absolutely, Christian. Absolutely.
OK. All right. We're all clear on that. Chris Roebuck, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.